How's it going, Rams? And welcome back to the last edition of CTV Sports before Thanksgiving break. I'm Mike Walsh.
And I'm Ella Fredrickson, and here are your top stories for the week.
CSU Football prepares for a trip to Air Force this weekend after suffering a crushing defeat to Wyoming.
Rams Volleyball hosted its last home match of the season, celebrating its seniors and one special head coach.
And finally, Out of Pocket returns for a Thanksgiving special.
All of that and more on CTV Sports, which starts right now.
We start with what other than the highlight of the weekend, as CSU football geared up for its biggest game of the year, the Border War. And that's an understatement because it seemed that the consensus around Ram Nation was simple. The football season, regardless of the pains to this point, would be a success with a Wyoming win. And from the start, it looked like that would be the case. Colorado State came ready to play with a quick 3-and-out from its defense that had the home crowd feeling electric. And to make things even better, just after that stop, star receiver Torrey Horton put on a show and made multiple defenders miss on his way to the house on the 72-yard punt return. And speaking of Horton, he was even more effective at his wideout position, corralling passes like these all night long as he totaled 8 catches for 168 yards. And yet, despite the great game from Horton and many others, the Rams just couldn't find the end zone on offense, as the only points they mustered on that side of the ball were 2 Michael Boyle field goals. And while Wyoming did have one of its worst performances of the season, the Pokes still managed to exploit some of CSU's weak spots. The Rams players and fans were hyped going into the fourth with a slim 10-7 advantage, and at about the 13-minute mark, CSU would extend its lead courtesy of that second Boyle field goal. And CSU was looking good and feeling good after stopping a crucial Wyoming drive. However, the high energy was short-lived as the Cowboys were at the right place at the right time when Torrey Horton muffed this catch of the punt that led to Wyoming running just 2 plays, with one of them being this huge starter receiver Alex Brown for 33 yards to put Wyoming in front. But the Rams showed no quit, taking their succeeding drive well into Wyoming territory, but walking away with nothing after a missed 40-yard field goal attempt from Boyle. And in the end, Colorado State simply ran out of time. And yes, I know this was a rough ending, but when we look at the analytics, it was a different story. Once again, the box score just didn't seem to replicate the outcome. CSU was in command all over, edging the Cowboys in passing yards, first downs, and yards per play. However, the rushing game favored Wyoming despite another 100-yard outing by Avery Morrow. The Rams were also bested in the turnover margin as Torrey Horton's muffed punt in the fourth proved detrimental as it yielded that go-ahead score. But hey, the defense also could have made that stop. So when it comes to the stats, the Rams played a great game, but when we look at the actual outcome, we see poor offensive execution and some technical errors in the fourth that cost them a Wyoming upset. And what's more, a heartbreaker that came with it. Here's head coach Jay Norvell after the loss.
I think Torrey's been outstanding, and he's brokenhearted in that locker room right now. And we've gotten some good performances out of Avery. Our line's blocked well at times. We just haven't had enough consistency in execution. And so, we had our opportunity to win the game anyway, with all that being said. So, just won our time today.
We all feel the same, Coach, but we can't dwell on the past forever as CSU looks ahead to another conference foe in Air Force this coming Saturday. My hopes aren't that high, but boy, would a win in the spring send Ram fans home for fall break in a joyful mood. But anyway, that's enough of football. Ella, what's new with women's basketball?
Well, Mike, the Rams were back on the wooden floor over the weekend to take on the Grizzlies of Montana in Moby Arena. Moments after tip-off, though, the green and gold looked rather sluggish, unable to get shots to drop consistently and failing to recover defensive boards. Compared to the play in the second half against BYU, it was not the normal self we got accustomed to watching. However, recovery came quickly to retain a lead and adjust in proper time. Once CSU began to open up lanes for clear paths to the hoop, layups started falling and open shooters on the outside found their groove. A significant aspect of this team early in the season has been evidently the newcomers, willing to carry much of the weight. Especially in the second half, everyone in white that set foot on the court seemed to be a factor in the total 82 points the Rams put up. Senior transfer Destiny Thurman had this to say about how deep their bench truly goes.
I mean, we have too many people on the team who can score. The starting 5 and then even the people coming off the bench, we can all hit double figures. So I feel like even on a bad shooting night, we could still have really good numbers.
Rams' 24 points and 3 for 5 effort from 3 helped carry the Rams to an undefeated 2-0 start, beating Montana handily 82-58. In the first quarter, things were closer than ideal, but as you can see, once the pull-away began to materialize in the second quarter, it never stopped. CSU doubled Montana's points in the paint while also capitalizing much more on turnovers, all of which prompted a 24-point blowout. The last 3 quarters are what reassured Ram fans of this team's remarkable potential for the season. The slow start took no toll on the green and gold momentum as players like McKenna Hofschild and Sydney Meck joined Thurman in double figures. Hofschild also demonstrated her selfless nature with 11 assists on the night. And as for Meck, well, she did it all, being an asset on defense as well for 3 blocks. Up next for the Rams is another home contest in Moby, welcoming in-state opponent Western Colorado. And that's happening, well, right now. Mike, can you give us an update?
For sure, Ella, and with all due respect to Western Colorado, the Mountaineers this season just aren't that good. With 2 losses already to Texas Women's University and Angelo State, yeah, I know, but college basketball can be weird. So let's see how it's faring thus far over in Moby. CSU is currently leading 35-20 over Western Colorado, with Megan Boyd having 12 points, going 4 for 4 on 3-pointers. Just an efficient game out of her so far. We've also got McKenna Hofschild with 9 points and 4 assists thus far, obviously leading the pack with those 2 girls. Hopefully they can keep it going. But regardless of the outcome, I'm pumped to see the Rams get another non-conference test later in the week as they'll hit the road for the first time this season, traveling well down south to Starkville for a date with Mississippi State. And while we could provide you with an in-depth preview of that matchup, we'll move on to the other basketball team here on campus. Ella, did the men win by more than 20 on Friday?
Thanks, Mike, and not quite. Once again, a small school that no one's ever heard of, including residents from Louisiana themselves, gave the Rams all they could handle, hindering some of that Moby madness. Similar to the buzzer beater finish we saw just 8 days ago, the first half of this one was a lot closer than what CSU hopeful might have wished for. Now, that's not to say the Rams didn't come out hot, as they managed to go 8 for 15 from deep. But their defense was rather lackluster, never really settling in early. As a result, the Lions kept up the pace and only trailed CSU up by 2 at the break. And from what it seemed, this would be another nail-biter until the very last second, with both teams losing that quick strike spark from deep they had in the first half. Both offenses used up the shot clock more and slowed down the speed. But thanks to the Rams' growing cohesion to work as a single unit, every man Nico Medved circled in recorded an assist, 5 with multiple. Not only did the passing improve, but the Rams' ability to crash the boards allowed for more second chances that helped guide them to victory. With forever no more Roddy and the temporary absence of Isaiah Stevens, the Rams as a team must be in sync, and that's precisely what they did. 6 different players hit double digits in comparison to the Lions' 3. Even though this is a young team, the bench is deep and demonstrated its consistency. Patrick Cartier was its most obvious weapon, hitting 5 buckets while going perfect from the charity stripe, leading to a game-high 17 points. Starting guards John Tonje and Jalen Lake also produced big numbers, with Tonje scoring 13 and Lake having 6 assists. The Rams had a quick turnaround, though, pivoting for another potentially sneaky opponent in Weber State yesterday. And with that, Mike, did we remain undefeated on the homestand?
Indeed, we did, Ella, and in dominating fashion, winning by over 20 points. And unlike the way the first 2 games went, the Rams controlled this one for pretty much the entire 40 minutes. Colorado State led in just about every category, but notably they had 36 points in the paint compared to Weber State's 12, a stat that ultimately proved the difference in the scoreboard. CSU also passed the ball more efficiently and kept possession more effectively, with 20 assists and only 9 turnovers. And while the Wildcats did outboard the Rams ever so slightly, it didn't matter as the Rams cruised to a 3rd straight victory. It was reassuring to finally see a beatdown of a lesser opponent, and with many new members sporting the green and gold, these first few games have been crucial for the team finding a rhythm, and it couldn't be more important before a big road trip. And not just a road trip, but a busy array of contests and tournament play.
That's right, Mike. The Rams will head to Charleston, South Carolina on Thursday to duel with the Gamecocks, as well as several other programs throughout the weekend, depending on certain results. And with more on the Shriners Charleston Classic, we turn it over to Greg James. Greg?
Thanks, Ella. The Rams will finally get a taste of some serious competition when they take on a daunting SEC opponent in South Carolina. The Gamecocks are coming off an impressive win against their rival Clemson, and the story of the season for the Gamecocks has been all too familiar to CSU's, holding on to 2 narrow victories. They rely primarily on 2 forwards, most notably true freshman Gregory Jackson III. If the Rams hope to pull out the W, they must contain him inside. If that happens, CSU would play the winner of Charleston and Davidson on the other side of the bracket. It's pretty diverse, from schools in the Northeast, including Virginia Tech and Penn State, to a squad that Coach Medved is all too familiar with in Furman. But regardless of how the Rams place in the tournament, it will surely be a good tune-up for the rest of their non-conference slate going forward. Guys, back to you.
Now, I don't know about you, Mike, but this team has not seen a lot of good competition yet, and I know they're still young, so I'm worried about their lack of chemistry affecting them.
I'm worried about the fact that we've played bad teams and we're not winning them by as much as we should.
No,
it's kind of
absolutely.
scaring me when we're going to play against good teams and what the results are going to be for those.
To see some of these games come down to the wire is really, really scary to go and face good opponents this early in the season.
Like, I know it was a game winner that Isaiah Rivera had, but it shouldn't have been that close
A game
at
winner is
all.
always fun. Yeah, exactly. Maybe later in the season in conference play,
Yeah.
we'd love to see another game winner, but not
Against a
this
good
early.
team,
Yeah.
not against a bad
Not
team
this
like
early.
that.
Yeah. When we come back, a recap of CSU Volleyball's win over Air Force as Coach Tom Hilbert says farewell to the university.
Plus, we'll break down the highlights from a very busy signing period in Colorado State athletics. All of that and more right here on CTV Sports.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
Welcome back from the break, Rams.
As Leah mentioned on Thursday, this past Saturday saw the final home game for one incredible senior and one pretty awesome coach for CSU Volleyball. Outside hitter Jacqi Van Liefde and legendary headman Tom Hilbert were honored in Moby for 2022's version of Senior Day. Afterwards, the team faced a below-average Air Force squad, and the match was uncomfortably competitive from the onset, approaching near panic mode once the first set concluded. When you're on a 3-game losing skid, losing the first set badly 25-16 is never an encouraging sign. The Falcons completely flocked the Rams, putting together a few big runs that pulled them away. This was it. The season is lost. We've completely tanked. Might as well Hilbert leave right there while he still has the chance. It is over. Or was it? Of course not, because Hilbert's been here for 26 years. He knows when to give an inspiring pep talk when needed, and the players know when to listen. The Rams absolutely destroyed the Falcons in the succeeding 3 sets, winning the next 2 by 9 and the final 1 by 7, sealing the dub 3-1. And man, CSU just seemed to come alive after that opening blunder, as Kennedy Stanford and Malia Jones became immediate forces at the net, registering numerous kills and some crucial blocks. The attack was initiated by excellent front row play, including setters Sierra Pritchard and Barrett Power, who accumulated 25 and 18 assists respectively. And again, I don't know why we keep showing you these box score graphics, because it seems to contradict everything I just told you. Let's see, that's 1, 2, and 3 areas where Air Force outperformed CSU, barely falling short in points and blocks as well. I guess where the main kicker is, though, is errors, as the green and gold played a much cleaner match. A curtain call for Hilbert would ensue, and just a few short days later, volleyball would get its shot at the border war. Currently battling it out with Wyoming up in Laramie. Ella, what's the status up north?
Yeah, Mike, well, if you thought there couldn't possibly be more going on right now, boy, were you wrong. The Rams are in action for a rare Tuesday match, looking to redeem CSU fans from football's haunting experience and sweep the Cowgirls in volleyball. This is their second to last match of the regular season and a huge one before taking on tough competitor UNLV. Now, Mike, normally I would have a live update for you, but there's not much to say because the Rams, in fact, did sweep the Cowgirls up in Laramie tonight, 3-0. Malaya Jones carried this one with 8 kills and 2 blocks, leaving no time for Wyoming to even get a set out of them. That is a strong way to close out the season and the momentum that CSU absolutely needed 2 weeks before the tournament. The Mountain West tournament is officially less than 2 weeks away, and stealing a pair of wins to end the season couldn't be more important. But that's enough Moby Arena madness for now. Mike, can we take it outside?
You've got it, Ella. We'll head to the track where cross country competed at the Mountain Regional last Friday. The race, hosted by New Mexico, welcomed 19 schools, and Colorado State, for its part, performed pretty well. The women finished 4th, while the men posted a 6th-place tally, with 5 Rams receiving all-region nods. In the women's 6K, Annabelle Stafford paced the squad at just over 20 minutes, good for 6th, as Sarah Carter followed suit in 20th, and Lily Thomasula-Martin crossed 5 seconds later in 24th. Meanwhile, in the men's 10K, Thomas Chaston and Mason Brown were neck and neck, literally 1 second apart, as Chaston finished in 11th and Brown in 16th. And then just 24 hours later, CSU would await its NCAA championship fate, hoping for at-large bids from both squads for the first time in 18 years. And to the excitement of all CSU faithful, that is exactly what happened. The committee selected both groups to make their return next Saturday in Stillwater, Oklahoma, as it has been an impressive season for cross country, and hopefully CSU can showcase it strongly at the national level. And speaking of pivotal meets, Ella, did any of our 2 remaining high schools advance to the Elite 8?
Well, Mike, unfortunately, no. Both Fossil Ridge and Rocky Mountain found themselves on the short end of the scoreboard in their bouts with 5A juggernauts Regis Jesuit and Grandview, respectively. The SaberCats traveled down to Aurora to take on the 7th-seeded Regis Jesuit Raiders to not rub salt in the wound. We'll keep it short for our sports director and Fossil alum Brandon. It was a bad game, losing 63-28. And on the other side of the bracket, the Rocky Mountain Lobos found similar results, laying a goose egg to the Grandview Wolves 20-0. Regardless of these disastrous season closures for both teams, Rocky and Fossil had successful campaigns overall and should be proud of what they accomplished. And speaking of high school, Mike, it's mid-November, which means signing period has arrived. What can you tell us about the new slew of incoming CSU commits?
Well, Ella, programs across campus had yet another busy signing period. And while track and field and golf brought aboard a host of talented athletes, our focus tonight is on the newcomers for basketball, volleyball, and softball. We'll start with basketball on the women's side, where the Rams welcome 5'10" guard Avery Anthony, as the Wisconsin native is a very quick and agile and able to get to the basket easily and score at all 3 levels. As a junior, she averaged nearly 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals per game, a very impressive line as she enters the Rams' backcourt. And for the men, 2 new additions. First is Austrian forward Rashawn Mbemba, who was rated the best young player in the Austrian league. Medved loves his 6'7" frame, and he's got a great touch around the rim and can step out on the perimeter. Medved also sees him as a physical presence that will be felt immediately on the court. And lastly, we have Kyan Evans. The guard has scored over 1,000 points and dished out over 400 assists for his career at Staley High School in Kansas City. He possesses a great basketball IQ, which is what you want from a point guard. He's also a Moken Elite member, a team that has inherited some pretty insane talent, including the likes of Trey Young and Michael Porter Jr. If Colorado State wants to become a blue blood in college basketball and dominate the Mountain West, bringing in players like Mbemba and Evans is a great start. Okay, now I'll hand it over to Ella for volleyball and softball. Ella?
Thanks, Mike. Let's jump right into volleyball, where 6'7" middle blocker Kakua Richards is at the forefront. The incoming freshman is out of Seabury Hall High School in Hawaii. According to associate head coach Emily Cohan, Richard moves laterally extremely well, and because of her size, is primed to develop with college experience. She's fairly new to high-level volleyball, but exhibits incredible energy. Moving on, we have 6-foot outside hitter Taylor Pagan. Pagan has been on CSU's radar ever since the 8th grade and should make a phenomenal 6th rotation player. She has a heavy arm, knows how to pass well, and can play in the back end when needed. If that versatility wasn't enough, Pagan can fit into CSU's system as either an outside hitter or opposite hitter. Richards and Pagan will be huge gains next year for the Rams squad, especially with the exit of Van Liefde, and I'm sure they'll fit into the scheme of whoever is named CSU's next head coach. Okay, that's volleyball. Now let's transition to the diamond. Rams skipper Jen Fisher announced the addition of 2 athletes to the Ram family, one of which was pitcher Regan Wick. The 5'5" hurler took her small high school in Texas to great heights, competing against top-notch national competition. Expect her to be a staple on the mound for the next 4 years. And joining Wick will be middle infielder Kaylin English. Also 5'5", English is a local kid reigning from Parker, Colorado. She has immense amounts of athleticism, grit, and teammateship. Anticipate her to make an immediate impact in the field, by the plate, and on the bases. It will be very fun to watch these athletes establish themselves in the green and gold and witness where it'll take each program going forward. And with that, Rams, we'll take another break.
But don't go anywhere just yet. Because for this week's version of Out of Pocket, the 3 of us will compare Thanksgiving foods to the different CSU athletic teams. Interesting, and it only happens right here on CTV.
Living with someone you don't know on the other side of the wall is hard, especially if you don't know how to be a good roommate. The first thing that you'll want to do to be a good roommate is make sure that you always stay quiet. Be considerate of others when using common spaces and appliances.
Hey buddy, what you doing?
I'm just gonna need like 40 minutes. Be respectful of your roommate's privacy. Ugh, my bad. Finally, make sure that you clean up after yourself. Oh, fresh toothbrush.
Have you seen my toothbrush?
Follow these tips to get along with your roommates and your landlord.
Yeah. Welcome back from the break, Rams. With Thanksgiving just over a week away, we here at CTV Sports wanted to get in the spirit and decide which Thanksgiving staples best fit some of the biggest sports at CSU. First off, we have the flagship sport for most schools across the country, football. Now, I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me on this one, but I feel like football and turkey just make sense. It's the star of the show. It's the one that they associate most, football, college, turkey, Thanksgiving. They just go hand in hand. But both of them here at CSU and for Thanksgiving, overrated. Football, they're not great here. Turkey, you need to pair it with other things in order for it to be good. Maybe my family just isn't the best at cooking, but the turkey always comes out dry, and I just do not have a good time eating it without gravy, without cranberry sauce, without mashed potatoes. Football, same thing. You need to add something to it. You need to go with friends. You need to go to a tailgate because the games themselves just aren't a good time.
Yeah.
So that's why I compared turkey to football.
No, look, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
But up next, here's what I thought about women's tennis. For women's tennis, I went with stuffing because I think women's tennis is always dominating and they're always at the top of those stats after the games. And stuffing is also one of those things I think is just a top tier piece of the meal. I think that's easily a good comparison.
Now, Mike, I agree with you that the tennis team here at CSU is underrated and a really, really good team, but stuffing is just not up there for me. It's just not the best.
That's a personal thing.
No, it's just not good. I don't love it.
Stuffing is goated.
Thank you. And the women's tennis team is quite goated this year.
I agree with that part of it, but I think they deserve better than stuffing, is what I'm saying.
You can give them better than stuffing. For me, stuffing is
Cranberry
top
sauce.
tier.
How about that?
No, definitely not cranberry sauce.
And jumping back to football just for a second, I thought like you said with football, you needed something, and football is good, has been good at CSU, and it can be good. They just need like A couple things like a good offense.
Seasoning, that extra thing.
Because Turkey's had some good years.
Yeah,
and
no,
so
it
has our football.
I've had 1 or 2 good turkeys in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
We've had 1 or 2 good football games.
Every Morrow's doing great things. Tori Horton's coming back next year, so.
Yeah.
But Mike, tennis deserves better than stuffing. That's just personal thing.
that's pretty
Apple
high.
pie. There were so many other good options you could have given our tennis team,
stuffing's pretty
and
high,
you
though.
went with stuffing. Disrespectful. But moving on, here's arguably the most popular sport on this list, men's basketball. Now, I feel like this is also an obvious choice, but maybe it's a little biased because it's my opinion, mashed potatoes.
It's a good
Men's
choice.
basketball at CSU, everyone loves it, everyone has it, everyone always goes for it first. That's the sport everyone goes to first. And when mashed potatoes are on that table, that is what I'm reaching for first. You know what I mean? That's what I want the most of my plate on before everyone else takes it.
I think mashed potatoes is a good player too, and I think our team, at least the way I've seen it, is a good team.
Yeah,
so I
no,
think
absolutely.
they really match well.
Yeah. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, even on years where they're having to rebuild like this one, it's still a solid option, and
Exactly.
everyone is looking forward to the conference slate for men's basketball, and they're looking forward to mashed potatoes.
Now, there was one other explanation I had. Mashed potatoes don't make the best leftovers, and CSU does have some of those rougher games when they shouldn't. Turkey is a good leftover, so those are 2 kind of issues you got to
Yeah.
compare a little bit.
That's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah.
And all right, now let's bring it to my pick for cross country. For cross country, I went with gravy because I think gravy is a super underappreciated piece of the meal, just like cross country, which barely gets any coverage. I think with that no coverage and gravy not being talked about that much, which I think obviously the best topping, I think cross country was amazing this year, so I think it goes hand in hand.
The issue I have with your argument, gravy is the coverage. CSU doesn't, or cross country doesn't get the coverage.
I don't think gravy gets the coverage either. I think you're always talking about turkey, you're talking about stuffing. I think you're even talking about maybe cranberry sauce more sometimes. So I think gravy is definitely underappreciated, just like our cross country team.
No, but I do agree with you. Cross country does not get enough credit for the numbers that they are able to put up. Absolutely. Greg?
I think cross country, again, doesn't get covered, and it really should because it's one of our best performing teams out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And with that, let's roll into some volleyball. And speaking of rolls, I just had to compare these two. CSU women's volleyball and the dinner roll just work. The rolls are something you kind of forget about until they're on the table, and I know they make you excited as soon as you see them there and end up being one of the best things on your plate. Now, volleyball, it's not really talked about in the off season, and people kind of forget about it coming into the year. But once they get in their groove, they're one of our best teams, best performers consistently. And I think that's why they match up perfectly with the bread. Never fails, always good, always reliable. Consistent, everything.
I think your reasoning is good, but I also think that it's good because it's good with other things. Like you can do it with other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also a good appetizer for the other things at Thanksgiving. And volleyball is a great appetizer for it's like the starting course for CSU athletics.
Oh, absolutely. Right into basketball season.
Right into basketball season, and then into like the bigger conference football games, even though they're not that competitive sometimes.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that.
It's just like, even though it's not good football, it's at least fun time.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Now let's move on to our last 2 sports, starting with women's soccer. Now I think this is a very personal pick, as I am not a huge fan of cranberry sauce, and women's soccer definitely didn't have the best year. So I think these 2 go hand in hand because cranberry sauce is not very high on my list, and soccer was not very high on CSU athletics list.
Mike, I'm passionate about this one, and you know that. I am a lover of cranberry sauce. Put it on everything, my mashed potatoes, my turkey, even my bread sometimes, which sounds weird, but I promise it's good. And I'm not saying our soccer team was good. That is not what I'm saying.
I get it.
What I'm saying is that they deserved something more like stuffing. You know what I mean?
Not in my opinion.
I have to agree with you, Mike, that it is the cranberry sauce of CSU athletics.
Yeah.
And with that, Rams, we have reached the end of our show. We hope you have a restful break and great Thanksgiving. Of course, we'll see you after the time off, but in the meantime, make sure to tune into the last CTV Beats show of the semester tomorrow at 7 in the evening. Thank you all so much, and we hope you have a great night.